This is Terry Howe from the Talkback Fans Podcast, and you're listening to the BBQ Central Show with the incomparable host, Greg Rempe.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Hey, good evening, and welcome to the really big BBQ Central Show. This is the show where we talk about all things that are important in the world of barbecue and grilling. The show is originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evenings, a live fire fun and frivolity show. If you would like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you would like to follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at BBQCentralShow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you can get the newsletter coming up in about 12 minutes from now. Joining me on location and on vacation, the creator of the Barbecue Lab and quarterly guest here in 2025, David Gafford, who I believe is trotting through Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. At least the background beckoned to such a thing, and I appreciate David. A Herculean effort has been put in by David to actually appear on this show on time this Tuesday, which I certainly appreciate, above and beyond, to say the least. So happy to have David coming up shortly. And then after David, we will be joined by show favorite, educator, expert, and overall know-it-all and friend o' mine, Robert Moss, where, believe it or not, you might just hear a smidge or a lot more talk on the topic that has brought the Barbecue Central show to its very knees, a topic that is the most hotly debated, specularized, and or otherwise, and I didn't even see it coming, which of course is the Michelin Star Guide and how it works. And we have new topics to talk about in relation to the Michelin Star Guide that you're not going to want to miss. We also have some follow-up on James Beard Award finalists and nominees. So stay tuned for a Robert Moss 35 past the first hour. That will bring a close to the first hour. We will then move to the second hour. And last week, we had Tennessee embedded correspondent and owner of Blinky's Offset Barbecue Pit, Matt Osman, talk about the rib contest that he took part in out at the Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply Store in Ooltewah, Tennessee, or Ooltewah, Tennessee, depending on who you're talking to and or how that person is announcing the name to you, depending on if they really like you or not, from what I understand. And he talked about how it took him, he left his house late. And then we talked about, was he self-sabotaging? And then he was cooking on illegal fuel because people were complaining about it. And then people were saying he was a ringer and all this other stuff. And some other things as well. Matt speculating. Matt speculating. think that's 2 words in the opening segment that I've made up. The first one I knew about. That one was a mistake. So Matt's speculating on a lot of things, and I thought, you know what? What would be better than to back Matt up than with a visit from the guy that actually put it on, the creator of the Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply show and the proprietor of the Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply store and the historic Steve Ray's Midnight Oil Service Shop in Ooltewah, Tennessee. The proverbial mayor of Ooltewah, Steve Ray, will join us 14 past the first hour, where we will let Steve answer to all of the speculation that Matt has laid at the feet and at the feet of the contest that was held now a couple weeks ago. And we'll get Steve answers, and we'll talk about if there was a thought of railroading Matt, get him banned or disqualified from the cooking event, if the rules were as spelled out and as specific as Steve says they were and Matt says they weren't. Lots of things to follow up on. And then we'll talk to Steve about how the store is actually operating here in 2025 and what he feels tariffs might do to Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply and the associated pricing, depending on what you're looking to buy out of that store. So that's what's happening here tonight. David Gafford and Robert Moss, hour number 1, and Steve Ray, and hour number 2. We might not go all the way to 11 p.m., which would be fine by me, because in successive weeks, I will be rolling back to the Lone Star State of Texas, except this time it's not Houston. It is Dallas-Fort Worth, where we land, and then we go north and west to the PDI and Upfit Center of Ohio, Peterbilt. By the way, for those of you that are wondering from last week, still cancer-free for my wife. We go back to Houston 3 months from now, beginning of July, where we hope to get the 2-year announcement of cancer-free scans, and then a lot of great things happen as far as recurrence odds with this particular type of cancer that she has. So looking forward to getting back down to Houston and celebrating in good fashion with a 2-year clean scan. We'll keep you updated as things progress. Don't forget, you can follow me socially on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, all with the handle at BBQ Central Show. And we say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of the video streaming platforms. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show. You can also watch on twitter.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can watch on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show, where we have a new YouTube poll question of the week, and I'm asking everybody this, including all guests. Should Greg and Sam, the cooking guys, start a completely separate podcast where they talk about general stuff? And currently, 56% of you are saying no, you should not do that. Results of the poll from last week, where I was asking, do you personally know the mayor of any town? 48% of you saying yes, but 52% of you saying no. And we start here tonight. It's what no one wants to talk about in this industry, or perhaps even any industry, but it has to be something that we not only mention here tonight, but continue to cover and monitor as 2025 wears on. And by the way, 2025 rapidly coming to a close. And this is the topic of tariffs and how they are going to affect consumer pricing on cookers. I'm in the process of lining up interviews with some of the most important people in the cooker manufacturing world, and we'll bring these interviews and segments to you as soon as I have them locked and loaded. But here's what I can tell you right now, as of April 8th. I'm seeing signs that are being placed in facilities like Ace Hardware in Cincinnati and things that say, hey, if you're in the market for a Weber, get it now, because starting May 1st, pricing will increase anywhere from 10 to 20%. So for you math majors out there, for every $100 that you're spending on a grill, you can tack on an extra 10 to 20 bucks per 100. Maybe that's not that big of a deal on a $175 kettle, but Weber does make higher end units that will add hundreds of dollars of extra cost onto those grills. And by the way, this is not something that will be exclusive to Weber. This is most certainly going to become table stakes within the industry and, quite frankly, across all industries in general. I heard from a highly reliable source. And not only did this person recommend getting tariff content on the show in some form or fashion, this person also said that no country was spared from tariff implementation, and he expects to see at least 20% increase on pricing across the board for most brands, if not more. So, all that to say this, don't sit on the fence if you're planning on purchasing a new cooker for this year's grilling and barbecue season. Do it expeditiously so you can save your thin guilders while you're still able to. Otherwise, you're just overpaying for no reason. Nobody likes to do that. As I get the tariff segments booked, I'll be sure to promote them here on the show because this will be an important topic throughout the balance of 2025, no doubt. Could Pits and Spits be affected by tariffs? Well, maybe we'll be lining up a Ryan Zaboral to check it out. But in the meantime, let's talk about two of their great cookers. We kick it off with the Pits and Spits griddle, the gas griddle combining the power of a traditional grill with the versatility of a flat-top griddle. Engineered with precision, crafted from top-quality materials, this versatile griddle is set to revolutionize your outdoor cooking experience. Constructed of 304 marine-grade stainless steel, a fully welded design, the griddle comes with 4 burners to accurately manage your heat zones and get blistering hot with 80,000 BTUs. Made with the Pits and Spits signature quality, the griddle is designed to last for generations. Now, for those of you building your ultimate outdoor kitchen, you have to check out the built-in pellet grill, designed for discerning grill masters who demand top-tier performance. The grill, the centerpiece of any serious outdoor kitchen, from low and slow smoking to high heat searing. This grill can handle it all: brisket and ribs and pizzas and veggies. Pretty much you name it, and the grill can cook it. With the Pits and Spits legendary craftsmanship, you can be confident it's built to last. With stainless steel construction and a design that's as reliable as it is versatile. So if you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head on over to the website pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. That's pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. And use promo code BBQ Central for a free spice pack with orders over $500 or more. Once again, the website, Pits and Spits, all spelled out with a double T on the Pits and Spits /BBQ Central, and then promo code BBQ Central for a free spice pack. All right, we're back with David Gafford from the Barbecue Lab. Right after this, stick around, be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by Fireboard. Makers of the Fireboard 2, Fireboard Pro, Fireboard Spark, Fireboard Beacon, and the wireless Fireboard Pulse. When you use the Fireboard app, you have total access to all devices anywhere in the world. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. Good folks over at Fireboard. My next guest tonight creates some of the most comprehensive barbecue and grilling reviews that can be found across the internet. Making his second appearance here in 2025, we have a range of topics that we are going to be talking about here this evening, not the least of which is that David is on vacation and has somehow carved out time for this show, which I certainly appreciate. It is the aforementioned Dave Gafford from the Barbecue Lab. David, appreciate you making time, as I had mentioned before, on a barbecue road trip. You're in Vegas, I believe you said, so doing this is absolutely fabulous. We have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests, and I'm asking everybody tonight. Should Greg and Sam, the cooking guys, start a completely separate podcast where they talk about general stuff? Yes or no?
I would totally listen to that podcast.
Yes.
I think you should call it Tangents. It should just be tangents, nothing but tangents from Greg and Sam.
Currently, it's a 50-50 split from the YouTube voting public, and that's where I love the percentages to be, right at the 50-50 delta. So now, fortuitously, I have been getting a not large, but somewhat of a decent-sized handful of emails that have been asking me about the Ninja FlexFire cooker. I believe that's what it's called. So David has had his hands on the FlexFire for some time now. So why not lead off this segment here tonight, talking a little bit now for fans of the show. If you go, I think, all the way back to June, I got a secret screenshot photo of what ended up being this, and we were only left to speculate on if it was going to be a full-size unit or if it was going to be a portable-size unit or whatever. And lo and behold, it becomes, I guess, what is in essence a full-size Ninja FlexFire. So for the folks that don't know, David, a little background on the cooker and then how you have found your experience using it.
Yeah, so I got the Flex Flame probably, I'm guessing, 3 months ago. Really, I wasn't sure what to make of it the first time I saw it. I mean, Ninja's known for making multifunctional cookers in all different varieties of cooking. So the first time I saw that, I looked at it and I went, well, it looks like a gas grill. But I called it the gas grill that has a Geordie LaForge looking, visor from Star Trek on the side. And the first time I saw it, I went, I don't even know what that thing is. When you look at it, it's going to show you that there's a fan on the inside that's going to give you that circulatory heat that is really fascinating in a grill. It's probably the largest fan I've ever seen in a grill, but we're talking about a gas grill that has a pellet ability to be able to smoke low and slow, but it's very, very small pellets. Pellets aren't fuel, so it's an interesting cooker.
If we look at the smoking aspect of this grill, which to me seems to be somewhat akin to what that indoor barbecue pit that GE had come out with, I believe, a year ago at that CES show. So you're dumping pellets into the cooker, and as you said, it's not a heat or fuel source necessarily. It's just there for wood smoke. Is it potentially too pungent or overpowering? How do you find the smoke to perfume whatever protein you're cooking?
I would love to act like the performance of the Wi-Fi here is going to be great enough for this show, but I would say that the performance of the pellets is somewhat underwhelming in the fact that that fan is doing so much air movement that I didn't find that it had the punch and the pack that I want from the pellets to smoke with.
Is it doing its job as far as circulating the air? So when I hear about circulating or convection, I'm also thinking that this is a device that might be cooking stuff in a much quicker fashion than a normal grill would. Do you find that food is cooking quicker?
Yes, I do. I find that food cooks much faster than you would on a standard pellet grill or a standard gas grill. So yes, much, much faster. I'd say at least 25% or more.
Do you have a price point on it?
I mean, I think it was $9.99 was what they were listing it for.
Do you like that price point?
It's gonna find some buyers at that price point. I also think that it probably be lower. Personal preference.
The other grill that I wanted to talk about tonight specifically is a brand that I've actually been aware of for at least 4 years, maybe 5 years. I've tried to invite them on the show. It hasn't really gone well for me just from an introduction standpoint. Canadian-based company called Black Earth. You've had, according to the video, at least 5 months of hands-on time with what looks to be a full-size gas grill, 3 burners, 4 burners, or whatever it was. What do you like about Black Earth?
I like that Black Earth is creating some of the heaviest grills I've seen at point in the market. Of course, they're Canadian made. They're going to be fighting some of the tariff issues that we have going on here in America right now. But we're talking about grills that would last decades as opposed to 3 to 5 years. And that, to me, is something worth really noticing.
What did you like best about it from a performance standpoint? Or perhaps a better question would be, what are you comparing it to that Americans would be accustomed to brand-wise?
I've actually cooked on 2 Black Earth products. One is a grill and griddle combo. It's a propane grill and griddle. I really like that one. I've also cooked on their community grill, which is a gigantic 8-burner gas grill with an 80-pound pellet hopper, 2 different hoppers, 2 different burn cups. And their stuff is robust, to say the least. I mean, I would really compare it to the Lone Stars of the world, where your grills are going to weigh, 400, 600, 800 pounds, really massive. 304 stainless, this embossed texture on the outside to keep it from fingerprinting. Really, really nice stuff. But you don't see a lot of it here in America right now because they're not retail. They're really only direct to consumer. And that's one of the reasons that they came on our channel, just to get an introduction to everybody who's out there.
I don't know what conversations you've had with Black Earth, but aside from what we're dealing with right now from a tariff war, outside of that, have they expressed any thought to you that they would like to get into some kind of distribution here in the States or set up some kind of dealer network? What's the growth into the States here?
I think their growth into the States right now is a lot of their stuff is handmade. It's a very small organization. And I say small in the fact that when you compare it to the Webers and the Traegers of the world, they're still making them in Canada. And they don't make them until you order them. So they may have, 2, 4, 6 grills around, but that's about it. They're not inventorying and stocking a whole bunch. So if you have a change or any kind of a customization, they make it right there before they make it for you.
To me, this sounds like the Canadian version of a Pits and Spits almost, where now Pits and Spits does have a little bit of a dealer network through like Academy Sports and some other things like this, but they're handmade, mostly not stocking a ton. Quality is obviously through the roof. From a price point angle, what's the Black Earth stuff look like?
Yep, I missed part of that question because I'm getting about every third word, and I apologize. I'm here in Memphis at Bass Pro Shops Pyramid, taking my son on a barbecue road trip, and so we are at the mercy of the Wi-Fi here at the hotel. So I heard about a third of that.
Yeah, what price point are those Black Earth grills at?
I think their price point for what they're making is accurate. I mean, I got a lot. Hey, that's way out of my price point. Well, that's okay. It probably is out of your price point. But the way that they're making these things, I mean, these are massive grills that come in fully assembled on a pallet that you're going to be able to have in your driveway or in your patio for 15 years. So their price points are anywhere from, I think there's low 1200s all the way up to $12,000 grills.
Wow. Certainly an investment, but sounds like, as you said, they could be around for decades, generations, depending on how you care for them. So if it's a brand you're not familiar with, definitely want to check it out. Black Earth is the name of the company we were talking about. One of the other things that you've done recently on the YouTube channel was do the grills under $400. And while I might look at this and some of my fans might look at this and go, oh, a gas grill under $400. Like, I know how good that's going to be. It's going to be suck or worse. So it's like trying to figure out who the dumbest person in a room full of dummies is. Who wins in a battle of gas grills that are at $400 or under?
I mean, that was That was a fascinating test for us. We went out and we purchased all 3 grills that we tested under $400 from a local big box store. And they were all relatively similar, but the things that were different are the things that might matter to somebody. The side shelves on some of them were pretty flimsy. The burners on some of them didn't have the power that the others did. And you'll find that maybe the mobility of them is compromised in comparison to what you might find for hundreds of dollars more. But if your budget is a strict $400, there are grills out there that you can get, but just don't expect them to last, longer than 3 or 5 years. It's just not what they're designed for. I think that's really the thing that I'd probably try to communicate to people who are looking at that price point, is just be prepared that they're going to need replaced in that 3 to 5 year window. And that's really the planned obsolescence design that they're looking after there.
Do you know if all these grills are could they possibly be being made by the same manufacturer for different brands?
Yeah, sorry, Greg, I'm not hearing you. I got something about different brands. That's all I got.
How about this? I thank you for suffering through the internet instability and taking time on your vacation. I'm turning you loose so you can go gamble the fortune away, and we can pick it up in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it, and I look forward to it.
All right, sounds good. There he is, David Gafford right there. We said up front, look, the internet connection in his room was horrible. That was markedly better, and that wasn't even that good. And we said, hey, if it's going to be bad, we're not just going to chase it down to the very end. We'll call it a day, and that'll be that. So appreciate him at least running about 6-7 minutes. A lot of good information there. A little bit of lag between me stopping talking and him starting to answer, but I think we got some good stuff out of there. We'll revisit there in a couple weeks as we rebook Dave as he comes off of vacation. But again, appreciate the time that he gave on vacation, no less. So let's back out, and we'll chase down a Robert Moss when we get back. Before we do that, let's talk about Primo Grills. What do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they're fuel efficient. We love that you can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meats. We love that you can get rip-roaring hot for the high-temperature grilling of steaks and other thin cuts, but what's missing in the everyday lineup of ceramic cookers? The real ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking is very important to both professional and backyard cooks alike. It's the best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker is not very realistic. Why? Because it's round. And a Primo grill in the game-changing oval design, the shape gives you the ability to execute the two-zone setup that you desire. However, it also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. So when you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to configure the Primo cooker, so you're only limited by your culinary imagination. Lots of accessories, lots of new revamps that have been done on the Primo. Top stack, bottom slider, or air intake. Of course, you have the Primo Grill rotisserie. Turn out great food, including everybody's favorite chicken with ease. Go online to primogrill.com and check out all the accessories there, or visit your local Primo dealer and pick one up there. We also have the pizza grill accessory if you're into those high-heat pizzas, Neapolitan-style pies, if you will. Here's the bottom line. Best ceramics in the biz. Yes. Patented technology. Yes. True two-zone cooking capabilities and multiple sizes of ovals. Oh, yes, of course. But only sold through dealers. So go to primogrill.com, find a dealer near you, and then visit in person. Find the Primo oval that best fits your needs, and away you go. primogrill.com. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram as well. Also, the company sells Broil Master gas grills if you're in the market for a gas grill. Don't shit on a gas grill. I like gas grills. I'd love a Broil Master. Nick, how about a Broil Master? I'm in the market. All right, we're back with Robert Moss right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
We thank Dave Gafford for joining us for a few moments last segment on his vacation through Las Vegas, a barbecue roadie. The Barbecue Lab, all spelled out, BARBECUE, thebarbecuelab.com, his website. Follow him on social. This portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet, currently available in 3 sizes with a host of accessories. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a professional, it's just a cooker you want to add to the arsenal. Visit pitbarrelcooker.com and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. My next guest here this evening can be found 35 past the first hour, second Tuesday of the month for the last handful of years. A contributing barbecue editor for Southern Living magazine. It's our pal, Robert Moss. Robert, appreciate you joining me here this evening, as always. We have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests. Should Greg and Sam, the cooking guy, start a completely separate podcast where they talk about general stuff?
I will lead into that by saying I really like Dave's idea of calling it Tangents. That would be a great name. However, I would say no, not because I don't want to hear you and Sam doing an episode. I feel like you got to focus, and I'm worried if you had 2 shows, you would lose your focus, but also I think you might lose some of the special chemistry if we, it's special to have Sam come on and have that repartee. So I love hearing it. I would worry that if you tried to make a full-time podcast out of it, it might lose some of the special flavor that it has on as a recurring segment.
I don't disagree. And unfortunately, Robert, we are in the minority here. 44% of YouTube voting public is saying no, and 56% are saying yes. So something that will never happen, of course, but always fun to ask. So before we talk about the topic that nobody realized was going to be the topic of 2025, at least on this show, that being the Michelin Star Guide, why don't we go ahead and get an update on the other side of this deal, namely the James Beard nominees/finalists. As you peruse, who's standing out, if anybody, to you?
Yeah, well, first, before I have to do a correction, or at least an addition from the last time I was on, which I think I missed March, back in February, when the semifinalist list came out. And Doug Scheiding sent me an email and reminded me that we totally forgot that a set of barbecue folks we were talked about the barbecue folks who are pitmasters who are nominated for best chef in their region. But we missed the outstanding chef, which is the category for the best chef in the whole country. And there, of the 20 semifinalists, one of them, there are actually 2 of them, are the guys from Burnt Bean Company in Seguin, Texas, which is Ernest Cervantes and Dave Kirkland. They were nominated for the semifinalists. So, Doug, thanks for reminding me. I missed that the first time around, but it doesn't matter that much, I guess, because they didn't make the cut to the finalists. And so the barbecue crew got whittled down a little bit. I think there are 3 barbecue people, and Doug will email me later and correct me if I missed somebody else. But as I read it, there were 3 barbecue folks who made it to the finals, or the finalist list. Funny, of the 3, I've eaten at a lot of barbecue places. 2 of the 3 I've never been to. One of them is Danny Castillo out at Heritage Barbecue in San Capistrano, outside of San Diego in California. I just haven't made it out to the West Coast in a while and eaten there, though I've heard really good things about Heritage.
Yeah, same.
The other, Ryan Fernandez at Southern Junction Barbecue in Buffalo, New York, was made the cut for best chef in New York State, not all of New York, because New York City gets excluded. Never been there, and I don't know the next time I'm in Buffalo if I'll be eating barbecue or not, but so I haven't been there. However, the third one who made it through is, and I think may have talked about Robbie a little bit last time, but Robbie Robinson at City Limits Barbecue, which is just up the road from me in West Columbia, South Carolina. I actually was there last week. It was driving back from Greenville through Columbia, took a pit stop on a Sunday and ate at City Limits, and it's fantastic. So he is, I won't get in the whole as a pit master, a chef thing. We beat that to death, I think, last episode. But if a pitmaster can be considered a chef, I think Robbie's right up there, and he's doing some really, really interesting things at City Limits, really blending sort of like the new Texas craft style with another foot in the tradition. And I think more than anything, everything he does, the attention to detail, it's not like he just has a few good things. Every single thing he serves is great. Open 2 days a week, has a totally different menu on Saturday from Sunday. It changes up. And so a really great place. And, I'd encourage anybody who's driving down I-26 through Columbia, South Carolina. It's just like a quarter mile off the interstate. Stop off on Saturday or Sunday and go to St. Lemons.
Does he have another restaurant, or does he work in a factory
No, this
the
is
other
his
5
first
days
one.
a week?
He was on my best. He was on my best new barbecue joints list, which just came out like I think last year. He started off as a food truck, doing sort of like Texas style offset cooker. He parked his truck like in right outside of 5 Points, which is the big sort of nightlife district in Columbia, South Carolina. I did that for a while. Then moved across, had sort of a semi-permanent spot, and then just he found his old garden center that used to have like plants and like a whole nursery in West Columbia, and which is over the river from downtown Columbia, South Carolina. Transformed into this sort of like rambling barbecue compound. It's great. I mean, it's got everything you want. It's a cool place to visit. It's, people line up for it, but not too long. 30-minute wait. But it's really a great place. But no other restaurant, not a chef from another life. He sort of just got serious about barbecue and really got into it, and has truly honed his craft over, I'd say, probably the last 5 or 6 years.
How do you make a living working 2 days a week?
I don't know. That's a good question. Actually he's not working. It's even worse. How do you make a living selling food 2 days a week? Because they're working 5 or 6 days a week. They're cooking all week. And he said he wanted to add. Well, last time I talked to him, he said he wanted to add Friday service. But the problem was the space he has isn't big enough to do all, because they have this whole process they have to go through for the pickles and for the brining and for smoking and cold smoking and doing this kind of stuff. They just don't have enough refrigerator and kitchen space right now to cook enough food to serve 3 days a week. So he's working on that and hopes to open up. So he's somehow paying the rent and paying the bills. And he has a team. It's not like just him. It's about probably 10 people working at any one time. I think they're open all of 9 hours a week. And somehow he's managing to pay the bills with that. I assume he does catering and stuff like that, like a lot of barbecue folks.
Maybe he's financially independent.
It could be. If you look at the place, it's probably low overhead. Definitely a DIY kind of joint, which makes it all the more exciting. Because like if you go to a lot of these places, they've got investors and they've sunk $2 million into a building and a bar and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't have a bar and everything, that kind of thing. So I think it's low overhead. I think he does a lot of it himself with a small crew, but it's a pretty impressive operation nonetheless. Let
me circle back to what we started out with here in the segment, which was mention of Kirkland and Ernest Cervantes down at Burt Bean Company. Have you eaten there?
I sure have, a couple times.
Everybody I've heard that has been there, rave reviews might be an understatement. How good is the food there?
It's right up there. It's as good as any in Texas, I would say. And I think, Daniel Vaughn would agree with it. He put it way up on the list. I think it's a lot like, it's sort of in that same vein as Goldie's, which is, and sort of like what I was talking about the Robbie, everything is good. Like, it put attention into every single thing. And it's a really impressive experience when you go in. It's not like you get, really great brisket, but then it's just some pickles and stuff on the side. Everything is delicious. I still remember the pork steak I had there, and I love pork steak, and it's about 2 inches thick and just one of the best things I've ever eaten. So it is really consistently good, which I think why they get up on everybody's list.
Let's go ahead and re-enter the topic that has become 2025's biggest talking point on the show, the Michelin Star Guide. But it's not the same old conversation, because Daniel Vaughn told me, people like you. It's always funny when people like you find out about how the Michelin Star Guide works. I mean, heaven forbid I'm naive and think everybody's honest, but we have some new stuff here to talk about.
Barbecue Central Show exclusive news update.
All right, Greg Rempe reporting to the breaking news desk here in Cleveland, Ohio. Not breaking necessarily, but breaking necessarily. And filing this report from South Carolina is our pal Robert Moss.
Oh, you want me to break the news? Okay.
Sure.
So there will be coming soon, I think later this year, a new Michelin Guide on the scene. Which city might it be, you might ask? Which state might it be, you might ask? Well, it's none of those. It's the Michelin Guide to the American South.
The South.
The South. The South has finally arrived. The South, people are realizing there are great restaurants somewhere in the South.
Yes.
And Michelin's going to track them down and tell you all about it. So they're getting a little bit up in my territory, if you will.
Let's start at the most important question. How is Michelin Star Guide defining the South.
Okay, so you gave me grief for Missouri and Maryland. They are not in the South in the Michelin's definition, so you'll be happy to know that. However, there's only 7 states in their definition of the South.
Right.
Florida and Texas are not included. They
Right.
already have their Michelin guide, though, if you
Yes,
recall. At
that's
least
right.
some of Florida and some of Texas, a few cities in
Right.
there. So it's actually 7 states, 6 new ones, and then everything's weird about this whole announcement, but it's 7 southern states. And it sort of goes from New Orleans or Louisiana over to the Carolinas, and so it is. If I get it, it's Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and then North and South Carolina. And then they say, and the pre-existing Atlanta guide. So apparently Atlanta is not going to have a guide this year. It's going to get tucked into the American South. So I don't know if there's a refund situation involved for Atlanta or if their money ran out and they had to re-up, along with these other states. But yeah, it's going to cover 7 different states. But I don't know if Savannah gets counted because it's a pre-existing Atlanta. So Savannah, Georgia, they have some great restaurants. Will they get in? We don't know. It doesn't say Georgia. So it's a little bit unclear from the announcement that came out.
Virginia is left off the southern list. Isn't that the
Virginia
state that
is
starts
not on
the
the
South?
list. Yeah.
According to me.
Kentucky's not on the list.
Not the South.
Arkansas, not on the list. I don't know if you can argue about the Mid-South and if Arkansas is in there. But no West Virginia. It's sort of that everything between Florida and the Carolinas.
I think this isn't a topographical conversation, but I think if the state borders Ohio, it's not the South. Like Indiana is not the South. Michigan is not the South. West Virginia, not the South. Kentucky, not the South. But Virginia, I think, to me, is scream South. Arkansas, I agree, would be, while it is a little bit more central, that does seem South to me. But
but does it really matter? Because as we talked about last time, it's not like Michelin went out and said, what great region of the United States is underserved and unrecovered that we need to go explore. There may be a reason why they picked these states.
Yeah.
And, as I think you last time, spoiler alert, some money changed hands and it wasn't just the South hasn't arrived per se as a culinary destination.
So any idea what kind of financial agreements been struck between whatever the South is and Michelin Star?
Well, this is where it gets even odder and weirder to me, at least. There's no, I don't have any information about the money that changed hands. That's not been announced yet. I'm sure at some point a reporter will get. They did manage to publish the because some of these are public agencies and state agencies, so they'll end up getting reported at some point. But the real question is, who is behind this Michelin guide? Because no surprises, it's actually sponsored. It's sponsored by an organization called Travel South USA. No surprise, the press release was from Michelin Guide and Travel South USA. This is one of their destination partners, which means that they've paid money to the Michelin Guide to cover it. Well, Travel South USA is a really interesting organization. It's actually made up of 12 different states, and it's basically the tourist boards from 12 different southern states who sort of are on the board of directors, and they fund this organization. So the money actually comes from the sort of state travel agencies from 12 different states, including Virginia. I don't know how Virginia, Kentucky, they're in this Travel South, but they didn't get in here. I'm not exactly sure. That part wasn't explained. But it is from this organization. So it is this travel bureau. And it gets odder, at least for me, because have you ever heard of Travel South USA?
Never once.
Probably not. I haven't. I've heard of all the agencies that make it up, when there may be a reason. So who are they trying to sell the South to? Like, who are they trying to get to come down South and explore the great cuisine? Can you know where their target market is?
I would imagine it's me in Ohio, and then probably north and east of that.
No. It is not at all focused on American audience. It's focused on international travel. And the market they are marketing the South to is an international market. So Travel South USA, this is the first time they've done a Michelin guide or something like this, but they've been around for quite a while. They sort of have 2 sort of signature events, industry events that they do. One is called the Travel South International Showcase. So they do its international showcase. I think they do it every December. I think it was in Atlanta last year. It's going to be in Kansas City this year because Missouri is actually in Travel South. So Missouri sneaks into to this organization. But that is actually a showcase for international travel buyers, particularly these tour operators, these international tour operators. So they have a big conference where, a couple hundred tour operators will come to wherever and get sort of sold on the South so that they will end up packaging tours and bringing international tourists to these. It's trying to lure them to do package tours to the South. Their other big showcase is something called Global Week, which they, I think, just finished up in Louisville, Kentucky, I think it was last week. That is actually more for PR professionals. And the whole idea there is this is a conference that gets together PR folks and sales managers from, any kind of hospitality related industry. And they bring in a whole bunch of journalists, and it's international focused journalists. So it's journalists not writing for, the newspaper in Cleveland or for, magazines in the US. It's really for international focused journalists are writing for overseas publications or for international publications aimed at international visitors and trying to get them to come visit the South and build tourism there. So it's sort of odd that they're selling the South, I don't think, so much to Americans to try to get Ohioans to hop in the car and drive down to Atlanta or whatever to eat, but really trying to get tour operators and like journalists overseas to write about the great restaurants and the great food in the South and get everybody here.
Is there a lot of money to be had from international tourism in the South?
Yes, apparently so. I mean, if you look at the budgets, I looked it up. It's a nonprofit organization, so you can actually go look up the budgets. I don't have it in front of me, but they are a multi-million-dollar a year budget. It's just the travel. This is just a promotion. This is what they're spending to get these tours here. They have some numbers in their materials, like about what the travel the travel spend is, if you will. I'm trying to see if I have in the numbers in front of me. I could pull up, but it's really billions of dollars that they're estimating are being spent from tourists overseas. We'll see how that changes in 2025. I don't think they're predicting this probably when they signed the contract for Michelin, all the international drama we have going on. But the leading spend, according to this one of the materials, is like Canada, UK, China, oddly enough, would be the third largest, in Germany, India, South Korea. So there are lots and lots of tour companies, tour operators who are bringing the big tours over to the U.S. and taking it through these southern cities and orchestrating events and all that kind of stuff.
Does the Michelin Star Guide really increase people's desire to come to the South versus just, having this board say, hey, we got really great places to eat, trust us?
I have no idea. I think it's sort of weird to me that it makes sense, like Atlanta. If you get the Michelin Guide to Atlanta, now you're saying, come to Atlanta. We have all these great restaurants. And then you go Texas. Now you got 5 cities in Texas. They're saying, okay, we have these great, but now we're doing 7 different states. And so we have all this great, Michelin. So you're starting to really make it diffuse and really spread it out. And then I really am curious, how many inspectors do they have? According to all the official announcements, the inspectors have already been on the ground. They're touring. They're picking the restaurants. Michelin swears that they maintain their independence. Yes, they'll come to the region because of the travel bureaus, but the inspectors and the editorial team is totally independent, and they pick the restaurants and they pick the ones to make the guide based solely upon their judgment of quality. I don't know, but it does sort of make me wonder how many cities are they going to cover, and are they only cover the cities whose visitors bureau are contributing, or are they going to really try to hit every restaurant in 7 states in the course of a year? I don't know how many inspectors they have, but that's a pretty large territory to cover. I can attest, having tried to just cover the Carolinas is impossible for 2 or 3 people. So it's a hard task. So we'll see what happens. I'm a little skeptical that this is going to suddenly put the South on the culinary map. Whether it gets a bunch of tours here who may not come, I don't know. We'll find out.
Isn't the South on the culinary map already? When I talk to people
thought it
about
was. I was
Southern cooking, everybody loves it.
Yeah, we had our moment like 20 years ago when I first started writing about food here in South Carolina, and everybody was, Johnny Apple came down from the New York Times in 2006 and wrote about Charleston and how great it was, and then suddenly everybody was eating shrimp and grits and then bacon and bourbon and all that. But I think we sort of lived through all that, so it does seem a little late to the party in terms of the vogue of the South. But again, I don't think the target market is foodies in the U.S. I think it's the international travelers who. I don't know how they pick where they're going to go, but maybe they'll decide that Louisville, Kentucky's actually won't be Kentucky because that won't be the guide. Maybe they'll decide Nashville is the place they need to go to for great dining.
How much was the spend that Texas did? I know like the state spent X amount, and then
it was a couple $1 million over 5 years. I think I think each city put up a couple $100,000 per year, but it adds up to well into the seven figures over a 5-year spend.
So it would be safe to think that this was going to be a multi-million-dollar spend for Travel South or whatever.
I can only imagine it would be. And Michelin, the director, international director of Michelin Guide, was interviewed. I think was Bon Appetit did an interview with him last year, and he basically admits it. He said, "Look, we have a huge staff. We have salary expenses, we have travel expenses. We have I think he talked about we have a larger staff than many newspapers, and so we have to cover these expenses." And so he's sort of unapologetic, I think, about the fact that they're charging for it. The claims that they're independent, but they're shelling out a couple $1 million a year probably. Think about what it costs to hire 25 people full time, and or I think I read the number somewhere they have about 25 inspectors. And then send them traveling all over. And, that's a pretty big budget.
You think that guy would do this show?
I think if you pony up, he would be on there. Now, will he show up?
Probably. Wow. I have a long-standing edict on the show that I'm not paying for any guest.
Yeah. I would be surprised if Michelin would show up. But you never know. You could ask him.
Yeah. I mean, it's free promotion. I mean, probably would like that. Maybe and I assume he's never listened to a second of the show. Otherwise, he might rebuff me on my laughing at the Michelin Star Guide over the last couple months. But it's your fault. I mean, you're the one that told me all about it.
Yeah, no, I apologize for bringing this up. Yeah, we were going to cover other topics, but just the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, they keep coming out with new material for us.
Yes, I know. We're at April 8th here, and we were going to be so. For those of you who are just like getting into the fold here, last year we did a monthly topics with Robert Moss, a bunch of different barbecue topics. And then this year, leading into 2025, it was, hey, we're going to do deep dives on the classic barbecue sides and do history and why they're great and blah, blah, blah. And then the year turned and we have not even covered one side. We haven't even been close to covering one side because of all the other topics that have been going on here. Did you go to the HPBExpo in New Orleans last week by chance?
No, I did not. I'm not really writing too much about that kind of stuff these days, so I didn't have a good, as much as I'd love to go to New Orleans, I didn't have a good excuse to make the trip.
It seemed like an incredibly well-attended HPBExpo. Stephen Reichlin was there. I saw a lot of other big names. I was at the one in Louisville, Kentucky 2 years ago, and it was freezing cold. And there were...
Yep.
Very limited. Like I might have been one of the biggest barbecue celebrities there if that gives you a gauge on who was there. And there's no way I was going to go to New Orleans. But then I started seeing all the social media and I was like, oh shit, I probably should have went there. There was some big exhibits, a lot of new releases, celebrities that were there. Maybe it was just because it was New Orleans and not Louisville.
I think it's probably a little easier. I think some people hate New Orleans, but I'm a big fan of it. I'll take any excuse to go, spend a couple of days in New Orleans.
What's the best if you had to go eat one place in New Orleans? Somebody's going there this weekend. Where are you sending them to eat?
Well, there's no one place because you got to eat a bunch of them. But Galatoire's is my sort of go-to high French Creole classic. You still have to wear a coat and tie for dinner. There's very few places in the U.S. we have to do that anymore. That's one of my, sort of go-to places for, for a big night out. I always go to Galatoire's. Actually, I like going there for lunch. You have these long lunch and at Galatoire's is great. Commander's Palace is probably a close second to Galatoire's for sort of the high end. I love Mother's, which is a wonderful po' boy and red bean and rice kind of place. Get the Debris po' boy, which is a roast beef po' boy sandwich, and that's wonderful. And there's just many other fine places, but that's probably my two sort of go-to picks every time I'm there.
Once again, he has done it. He has given you content that you can't possibly imagine you're going to be getting on a show like this. It's Robert Moss. By the way, his website, robertfmoss.com. And you can find him here the second Tuesday of the month, 35 past the first hour. There is a really good chance that we might hit our very first side dish in May, but time will tell. In any event, Robert, always appreciate the time, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Greg.
Robert Moss right there. I mean, I'm putting percentages at right around 75% at this point that we might finally get to classic barbecue side dishes going deep on each on a single side item like slaw, beans, hush puppies, mac and cheese. We can cover the history. We'll do regional variations today, favorite version. That was all planned out. And then this damn Michelin Star guide came out, and it has monopolized my Robert Moss time each and every month. But we might have just crested to the other side of that. So we'll see how that goes. And I think I have caught up to the clock here after an abridged David Gafford, who, it's a great picture. Like, this is a guy that has really put in the efforts. He's in Memphis, not Las Vegas, but Memphis, and he brought a whole traveling kit with him. He's ready to go. He's got the computer up on the roller case. He's got the microphone I/O there to the left. It's got the red top, and then he's got the big Shure SM7B broadcast quality microphone right there. So Dave giving all the efforts. There's no doubt about it. Appreciate that. All right, we are back to wrap up the first hour. So stick around, and we'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Once again, we thank our pal Robert Moss. RobertFMoss.com, his website. By the way, I got an email from Amanda McAuliffe, daughter of Al McAuliffe, who was on the show, founder of McAuliffe Cigars, sponsor of the show. We're looking to book her in May. Schedule opens up in May. There's a big cigar association event coming up here shortly. I believe that's going to be in New Orleans as well. Usually it's in Vegas, but at least the last two have been. I am getting 2 boxes of new cigars, the McAuliffe A and the Herencia Habano. They will come in either Toro or Robusto. So if you are looking for additional McAuliffe samples, you've tried the color line, you'd like to find some other tasters of the other portfolio offerings, McAuliffe A is incredible, and the Herencia I have never had, but one of my coworkers had one a couple weeks ago. He said it was incredible. I believe he had the Herencia Maduro. I've requested the Habano. So, I should see those inside of a week, maybe a little bit longer. And if you are into trying out the McAuliffe cigars, shoot me an email. I'll send them out in my timely fashion. Also, McAuliffe Purple is being released at PCA, so we'll talk to Amanda about that when she comes on the show. All right, go ahead and refresh your libations. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central show. We head to the second hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This is Brian Mayer, host of Hot Sauce Weekly, and you are listening to BCRN, all barbecue and grilling all the time.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me! Fine, how you doing?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish! What?
He ate 54 wieners.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It's the Barbecue Central Show, where we talk about only the most high-level barbecue and grilling topics currently available for discussion. If you've missed the first hour, don't worry, we are recording. You will get the first hour of the show tomorrow, early morning. You can listen along with me as we drive to the airport. You will get the second hour of the show on audio podcast on Thursdays. And we'll talk about Friday here in just a second. Still to come on this show this evening, proprietor of the historic Steve Ray's Midnight Oil in Ottawa, Tennessee, and the proprietor of Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply, Steve Ray, joining us here in about 13 minutes from now. The Barbecue Central Show originating from
Palm City, USA, Cleveland.
We still say good evening. We still say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go over to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show. You can also watch on Twitter, which is twitter.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can watch the show on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. We have a new YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests. Should Greg and Sam, the cooking guy, start a completely separate podcast where they talk about general stuff? And currently 55% of you are saying yes. So right about this time in the first hour, it was switched the other way, where 45 to 46% of you were saying yes, we should, and the majority was saying no. That at some point during the first hour went to a 50-50 split, and now we have run the other direction, where the yeses appear to be starting to run away with it as we're hitting where that peak vote total usually happens during the show. But we'll see what happens here over the next segment or so. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday, episode 378, taking you back to April 1st of 2018, and not April Fool's. And it's taking you back to me tearing down the NBBQA Awards of Excellence. Only the awards, not the convention or association itself. It's helpful to a lot of folks. I know a lot of people that are members of NBBQA. They find value. Of course, back in 2018, this was an organization that was under substantially different management, different ownership, different thought about how to steer that ship when it was 2018 and with that group that was in control. Now, people that own Barbecue News are in charge of NBBQA, that being Cal and Jenna Phelps. This was actually, so what you're going to hear Friday is actually a re-release from the show that happened that Tuesday. So I did the whole thing on a Tuesday, and then later, handful of days later on a Sunday, I re-released just the rant, but talked up the front side of it, allowing myself to do a bit better of a setup to the rant than I did when it happened live on the show. So if you like me and you like me doing rants, you will have to make sure that you take in the Best Moment show this coming Friday. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And by the way, I will remain, now 7 years after the fact, almost to the day, I will remain steadfast in my take on the NBBQA Awards of Excellence. It is solely a moneymaker, and that's it. You pay to enter. Someone will win because they paid to enter, and that's it. And much like my naivete showed for Michelin Star Guide, perhaps I have the same level of naivete when it comes to awards of excellence or whatever anybody else would call something like this in whatever barbecue convention or whatever convention or trade association that they're involved in. It's a known way to make money. You put in an entry fee, you submit your podcast, in my case, or rub, like Doug's case, or sauce. But every time there's an entrant, there at the time in 2018, you paid $75 to enter the Barbecue Central show in contention to have Best Podcast of the Year for NBBQA Awards of Excellence. And if there was 50 entrants, you do the math. 50 times 75. I think that's like $10,000 that you just made on the podcast site. And then for sauces, and then for rubs, and then for everything else in between. Best barbecue picture, best barbecue blog, best barbecue article. All $75 a hit. So to me, it smacks of just trying to make money. In fact, this year, I think there was only one entry in Best Barbecue Podcast category. It was certainly less than 3. So you have 3 to choose from because that's all that paid. I am, as always, skeptical about these things, just me. But again, be sure to tune in to the classic rant, as John calls it. He's a good judge, by the way, of the show. And also, I would say this. I should always win Best Barbecue Podcast. I shouldn't have to enter it. As long as I'm doing it and doing it at the level that I'm doing it at, there's nobody that's even remotely close. This isn't me bragging. This isn't me puffing my chest out and saying, look at me. These are just merely the facts. Nobody is more polished. Nobody is more professional. Nobody is more well-researched. Nobody has the testicular fortitude to sit there and actually question guests the way that some of these people need to be questioned. I do it in a way that gives me answers back like this.
That's one of the most intelligent questions anybody has ever asked me.
Nobody has ever been complimented in that way in any of their podcasts that are barbecue related. That's why I should always win. Until I retire and give it away, I should always win the Awards of Excellent Best Podcast every year. And if you think less, you're just wrong. We don't even have to debate it. You're just wrong. It's fine. We can still be friends. But I'm just the best. That's how it's going to be. Now, before we get to Steve Ray in just a few minutes, I have an additional follow-up. I'm sorry, let me backtrack just for 1 second. Tune in this Friday to Best Moments. Subscribe to the podcast feed by going to thebbqcentralshow.com/subscribe. Also, if there is something that you want to hear from past shows or segments, email John and let him know so he can make you a show. John, Jon, at thebbqcentralshow.com, and he will do his best to meet your expectation. Last week, Ben from Cracks Country Cooking didn't challenge me to enunciate his last name or pronounce his last name, but I challenged myself. And I thought I was like Kazrazovich or whatever the hell it was. But I'm looking at the spelling, and I'm like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to. But I gave it the old college try. And the good news is this. Ben has sent me a YouTube video. Perhaps just a private link. However, I was able to put it in the streaming software, and we're going to play it. We're going to see if I'm right or not. We're going to see if my Kazrazovich or whatever the hell I said last week was correct. And we will all learn in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Greg, it's Ben from Cracks Country Cooking. My last name is pronounced Karaskowitz. Yep, you were close, but no cigar. I'm a brand ambassador for How to Barbecue Right and the Good Charcoal Company. I love the show and Keep up the good work. Hope to chat with you soon. Bye.
Ben
Hey, Greg,
is
it's Ben
saying,
from
all
Cracks.
right, Ben. Karaskowitz. Now, looking at it, I can see that as I'm looking at it here. Karaskowitz. Look, Ben, in all fairness, AI told me how to say your last name. There's no way I was even coming up with Karaskowitz. There's so many consonants, very few vowels, a lot of consonants back to back. I can't deal with that in my head. I'm very, very simple when it comes to, like, I'm a couple steps ahead of Dim, I believe is what the mental rating is. So to see all those letters together, and I can see Witz, I guess, W-I-C-Z, Witz, yeah. But it was a long shot to think that I was going to get it. But I appreciate you weighing in and giving me the actual last name, Karaskowitz. By the way, congratulations on being a How to Barbecue Right ambassador. That's a lot of product there. If you want to ever offload some of that product, I know a guy in Cleveland who would happily take some. I'm not asking. Also, Good Charcoal Company. Good for you. We're going to be talking about the Good Charcoal Company coming up here in just a second with our pal Steve Ray. Before we do that, let's talk about Big Papa Smokers. Let's celebrate with Big Papa Smokers. Their 15th anniversary with the Ultimate Barbecue Essentials. No, that's not it. Now we're in April. I have this to bring you. Big Papa Smokers is celebrating 15 years of helping both Backyard Warriors and Competition Pros bring home the Grand Championship. Whether you're prepping for your next comp or just firing up the grill for spring, Big Papa's award-winning rubs like Sweet Money, Competition Brisket and Steak, Cash Cow, Cattle Prod have the bold flavors to take your barbecue to the next level. And for a limited time, they have brought back a fan favorite, Cucaracha, extra kick you've been craving. Barbecue Central listeners and or watchers, this one's for you. Use code BBQ Central 25, all one word together, BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free shipping. Yes, sir. We love free. Now through June 30th, aka the end of June. BBQ Central at checkout. I'm sorry, BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free shipping. So that means buy all you want, includes grills, the rubs and the sauces, the Big Papa stuff. Throw it all in your cart, and then as you're checking out BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free shipping. Oh, hot damn, that's going to save you money. Now through June 30th, limited time. June will be here before you know it. We'll be talking about July guests sooner than later, believe me. You think I'm a little crazy right now? I'm not crazy. I know what I'm talking about. We're already into Q2. But let's talk to Steve Ray out of the break. Why not? Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we welcome you back. This portion of the show being brought to you by the Barbecue Diet Program. Be tired of diets that make you choose between good food and real results? You don't have to anymore, especially when you team up with our pal David McDowell over at the Barbecue School. Go to school.com, SKOOL.com/BBQ right now and take your first steps to your fitness, health, and eating barbecue all at the same time, because you can have barbecue and your dream body too, but you have to take action. It's school.com, SKOOL, school.com/barbecue. My next guest tonight here is a Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer, and that's all the titles that you really need. Oh, by the way, he does own Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply and the historic Steve Ray's Midnight Oil in Ooltewah, Tennessee. We welcome back our pal Steve Ray. Steve, we have a
Initially.
YouTube. I'm sorry?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Yes, we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests. Should Greg and Sam, the cooking guys, start a completely separate podcast where they talk about general stuff?
Absolutely.
57% of the YouTube voting public agreeing with you, Steve, that Sam and I should be starting a separate podcast where we talk about general stuff. 43%, and I'm lying in the 43% are saying no, we should not do that. Robert Moss thought that some of the dew would come off the leaf if we did that. Is that true?
No, y'all could talk about how often y'all talk to each other during the week, like you do on your regular show with him.
Is that annoying?
Annoying.
Yeah. Highly?
Initially, sides tended towards items like bread, pickles, and your favorite, onions.
Ooh.
Coleslaw was an early favorite in North Carolina because locally grown cabbage was abundant and cheap if you didn't add mayonnaise. It wasn't very perishable. As mechanical refrigeration, air conditioning, and electric deep fryers became more common, new items as size, such as potato salad, French fries, began to appear on barbecue restaurant menus. Robert F. Moss, The History of Barbecue.
Oh, right. If that isn't a testimonial to go out and buy that, actually, don't go buy that book. I know Robert doesn't want to hear it, but wait through the end of the year until we get through all the sides. Then go buy the goddamn book and then stick it as reference to check back later.
Everything is in there, Greg.
He's the best.
Everything is in there. He's unbelievable. He's my favorite.
Last week, we had a upstart fella by the name of Matt Osman, owner of Blinky's Offset Barbecue Pit, who appears that he might be venturing into the barbecue brick and mortar game, but then again, might not be, allowing himself some hedge there, but it's completely unrelated to the topic we're talking about here this evening. He was talking about how he was taking part in the Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply rib contest that was put on now a couple weeks ago or 2 weekends ago, whatever you want to call it. We went through a lot of stuff. We learned that Matt, while setting an alarm, is apt to not really adhering to the alarm. We also learned that he might drive 93 miles an hour from 2 hours away to make sure that he's making it to your place almost on time. We'll also learn that he can cook a rack of ribs inside 41 minutes from start to finish in a pit barrel. All things that were crazy to learn and for me to probe on. Things that I wanted to have you on to talk about were to answer some of the following things that he might have mentioned, which was, number one, there seemed to be some type of coup or collection of all of the other 14 cooks to say, hey, this Matt guy is not using the right fuel. He's cheating. Not only that, we should push for his dismissal. Let's find this Steve Ray. True or false?
That is false.
False.
What happened was I had two guys, two of my buddies, Perry and Pete, were my helpers. And one of the teams said to Pete, hey, the guy that came in late is not using the right charcoal. We all had to use the good charcoal in briquettes, which was furnished by the rep of the good charcoal company.
Mm-hmm.
So I went over to Matt, and that because it was Matt they were talking about, and it was only one team that said something to Pete, and of course a couple of the teams that spoke between them, but they weren't advocating for his dismissal. They just said, "Hey, now when Matt pulled in, I was standing right next to him, and I was watching the guys help him unload. And he picked up a bag of the good charcoal lump. Everybody else was using briquettes. He picked up a lump bag right in front of me. Now, you would have thought that I would have said something then. It didn't cross my mind. It was so inconsequential. And he had plenty of the good charcoal briquettes with him. So when I heard this, we had a discussion about emails. But Greg, I'm not one of those email evidence people. A lot of people keep email on their phone. Look here. I don't do that. I don't even look at email on my telephone. I can barely call up Facebook on my phone. So we went back to my little office area, and I said, "All right, well, Matt, here's an email that said where you and I were talking about you supplying the briquettes for the contest." And in the email, he said, "Oh, briquettes? I thought it was lump." I said, "No, it's briquettes." And that was, that was okay. And that was it. So one would suffice that was evidence enough that we're all going to cook. But so I said, what I'll do is I'll go ask all the teams, and if they mind that you're cooking with lump and not briquettes. I went to every of the 13 other teams. One guy didn't show up, and every one of them said, "We don't care. It's not that big a deal." And they weren't advocating for his disqualification. They were just saying, "Hey, he's not using what we're all using, but we don't care." So that was maybe 20 minutes out of the total day. It was once everybody cleared him, it was, "Go ahead, Matt. You're golden. Everybody loves you. We're glad you're here." That's the number one thing is I'm glad he made it. I'm glad he made it. So there's the charcoal controversy in a nutshell.
But if it's 20 minutes of the total day, like, why put a stipulation on what charcoal to have anyway? Why did it have to be just good charcoal briquettes? Why couldn't it be good charcoal brand? Or why couldn't it just be, it's got to be some type of charcoal in that cooker, and that's where the line in the sand is drawn?
Well, when you run a contest, you can do that. When I run my contest, I tell them what they can use. Okay, it's just that simple. It's just that simple. We're going to standardize it. Everybody's going to use the same charcoal, and that's what's going to kind of make this a unique contest. Now, remember, they had to cook a rib. And they had to put it on at 10 o'clock. They only got one baby back rib. That's all they got. And they had to cook it in 90 minutes. Start at 10, end at 11:30. Have it sliced. Have 5 ribs put in a box, and have it turned in by 11:30. So it was kind of a Food Network type contest, if you will, coupled with a barbecue contest. And those were just one of the things I said. A few years ago, I was going to do a steak contest, and I went out and bought 10 of the same exact grills. And I was going to do a steak contest. Everybody had to use the same grill and the same charcoal. But there things happened. I couldn't do it. But to me, that's just it kind of evens the playing field.
It seems like if nobody would have had a problem with charcoal, nobody would have said anything about it. Could I speculate that if Matt would have ended up winning this event, all hell would have broken loose and would have been like, well, this guy didn't even use the right charcoal and he should be disqualified or he should be knocked down a couple points?
No, because they all cleared him. If they had a bitch, that would have been too bad because they all said, we don't care. And if he had won it, it would have been a huge accomplishment because he was so late and he was so harried. And so, the lateness is what made the contest. Him pulling in, hot and throwing all the stuff out of his truck, and everybody helping him, get his little table together. That was what probably I think the most interesting part of the contest was. I'm thinking that I may incorporate that into the next contest. Have one person pick, and he has to come late, and see how he does.
What about Matt's contention that people thought that he was a ringer coming in? Obviously, we know at results he finished, at best mid-pack. But did you hear or did anybody approach you saying, hey, maybe it's not fair, this guy's a ringer coming in?
All right. I'm going to be real careful answering this. I believe that Matt believes that some people thought he was a ringer. That's how I'll answer that. I believe that Matt believes some people thought he was a ringer.
In other words, Matt loves him some him.
In other words, Matt is very confident in himself, and he doesn't depend on anybody else to wake up his ego. We'll say that.
All things considered, are you surprised that he was able to even turn in a rib that could get him mid-pack?
No. Matt knows how to. He knows how to cook. I mean, obviously he knows how to cook. And they had to. As soon as he got there, he texted me on the way and said, "Hey, can Michael? He met one of our buddies cooked next to him in Lebanon, up in the Smoke on the Shores, and met him, and they got to be kind of buddies. And he texted me and said, "Hey, can Michael start a basket of coal for me?" And I said, "No." I said, part of the deal is being here." And he goes, "Okay, 10-4." He was good with that. And you made me forget what I was going to say. I was looking at that picture. What'd you ask me?
I asked if you were surprised he could turn in an edible rib inside the time frame.
No, because they got the charcoal lit really quick, and he was in a pit barrel, and I know you can cook super hot and super fast on a pit barrel cooker, and probably the best barbecue vessel to bring to a rib contest like that, other than just a regular old kettle. And Matt could have he could have started that rib at 10 to 11, or 20 till 11, or no, 10 to 11, and he'd have been done. I mean, he got that thing cooked fast. I mean, he got it cooked fast. And you know what? I took a bite of his too after they turned in. I went to some of the tables, and it's pretty good rib. I got to hand it to him. It's pretty good. I liked it. I didn't check all of them, but it was good.
So how's this whole thing judged?
We had 4 guys we have a little internet show here in Chattanooga by these guys. It's called Chatted Up Sports. It's funny. They had one of their buddies invited them all over one day to see his new couch, and he lives here behind me. And he bought a new couch. He calls his buddies, you know those young guys are. He calls his buddies, come over and drink and sit on his new couch. So they're sitting on the couch, and they're all, their only thing they do is talk about sports and in college sports and stuff. And somebody got the great idea and said, "Hey, we ought to go on the internet and talk about this." So they did, and they've got a little studio set up, and like after the game on last night, they had instant reaction, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. But anyway, they were my judges, and I trained them on the chili. They were my chili judges back in February, and I trained them on the ribs. And then my other good friend, Jim Reynolds, who is the voice of the UTC Mocs, the NIT champions. He's a play-by-play guy. He's been there doing it for 45 years. He was the other judge. So we had 5. And we went over everything with them, and they did a great job in the chili, and they did a great job on the ribs too.
So what kind of rules are you giving them as far as judging the rib? Are you trying to mimic a KCBS type thing, or is it just general consensus?
No, I stole it from one of my favorite people, Mike McLeod, Execution, Appearance, and Taste. And I told him, what the standard was for each initial, and they had to judge it with a number, and 1 through 10. And I did allow them to use points if they wanted to, like 8.5 or 8.4, whatever they wanted to do. And we weighted the scores just like they do in World Food Championships. And it worked out great. It worked out really good. They did a good job. Real good.
You have more competitions planned for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I'd like to get at Brad's number. If he's with a good charcoal company, he might be somebody to talk to.
Who's Brad?
But, Brad, the guy you just were talking to, the guy from he has a funny last name.
Oh yeah,
he said he was said he was an ambassador with the good charcoal company. What was funny? 2 days before the contest, Matt texted me and goes, "I can't get 15 bags of briquettes." I said, well, I said, so I mean, there again, it's Matt. And I said, well, thankfully I had it. I had ordered a pallet of each, and I had it at the store. I said, well, you just bring me 15 bags of a combination charcoal briquettes and lump, and I'll give them the 14 bags out of my stock, and that worked out great. And he made me whole, and that's all I was concerned about was getting reimbursed. And that was just that's another thing. I thought maybe you should have known. But
did he tell you he was going to bring those bags, and then 2 days before said he's going to be short?
Yeah, he couldn't. He couldn't gather them. I don't know what he, but it was, but that's I pride myself on running good competitions, and that's one of the things I was prepared for. That I had everything. I try not to depend on anybody.
Yeah.
And when you're running these things, just depend on yourself and not anybody else. And that's not throwing shade on Matt. That's on anything that I do. I'm always ready for anything that they throw at me. I'm ready for.
From a business standpoint, looking at it as the owner of Owlsnest Barbecue Supply, what does an event like this mean for the business that day? Is it an appreciable bump, or is it about every day?
Oh, yeah, because it brings so many people in. The chili contest we had a People's Choice function on that contest too with the judges. We had judges and a People's Choice, and the line was at the front door. And as people are waiting in line, they're grabbing bottles of rub and sauce. Hopefully they're paying for them all. You never know. But like this last time, we had a great day. We did over $1,000 in sales, and if I did $1,000 every day, that's all I need to do. And we did that. But it gets the community talking. When people come in and buy gas, they say, "What'd you have going on Saturday?" I saw a bunch of cars here. I said, "Well, you should have stopped." They go, "Well," I said, "follow us on our Facebook page." I will. I'd like to get in on that, or I would have liked to have tasted some of those ribs, because we had a lot of people that, of course, the families come with the guys that are competing. We had the food writer from the Times Free Press, our local paper. She was one of the competitors. I put her on a team. Lyric Lewin is her name, and she's going to do an article for a magazine that they've got coming out next month. So she had a great time. So it generates a lot of buzz. It generates a lot of interest in the community. They see something going on, and through the week they'll stop by and say, "What was that?" And they'll come in and like, "I've never been in this place. This is really cool." So it's every time I do one, it happens like that.
Steve, last question before I let you go, and appreciate the time here this evening. You are also a retailer aside from the ancillary stuff. You sell grills. Typically that's metal. Of course, tariffs are coming into play. What are you hearing from manufacturers, since you're a dealer from some pretty big outfits at this point? Are you hearing anything about you're going to be getting tariff surcharges or something along these lines?
I heard, let's see, today's Tuesday. I'm trying to think because I don't work on Mondays. Yesterday afternoon, I got a text from my sales rep at Palm Coast Sales saying that the Green Mountain Grills were going to have a price increase, and I was asking him, more importantly, were they going to have a sale before Memorial Day so I could maybe stock up on some grills, because we're getting low, but usually we stock up right before the busy season. He said, but no sales were coming. But he said that before. And they'd had a sale. And I got burned one time, and the last time I waited, and I got in on the sale. So you got to watch these guys. They're all, you salesmen are. Y'all are you just got to watch them.
I'm the director of sales. I'm not a salesman anymore.
Well, then you must have been really good at it, because they made you in charge of everybody.
That's right. Now they all follow me.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Green Mountain had an increase. I mean, if he's gonna pay more for it, I'm gonna pay more for it. The customer's gonna pay more for it. But what you worry about is where's that line of demarcation? Where is it? Where's the law of diminishing returns that no, I'm not gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting on 10 or 12 grills you can't move. and that's a lot. I mean, that's a bunch of money. So you got to kind of weigh that. Am I going to order this many, or am I going to, order that many, or am I not going to order any and see what happens? And I'm not at that place yet because it's only April, but we'll see. We'll see.
Steve Ray is the owner at Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply. You can find him at owlsnestbbq.com. Also, the owner of the historic Steve Ray's Midnight Oil out there in Ooltewah, Tennessee. Steve, always appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You bet. And I want to say this, Greg, real quick. Matt, Osman, you are invited to any contest that we do. You are a great addition. Everybody likes you, and nobody wanted you. Greg, I've done probably 15 of these contests in my lifetime. I've never disqualified anybody, and we probably never will disqualify anybody.
Even if they're cheating?
Well, he wasn't cheating, but he was confused. We'll just say that.
Fair enough.
There's a big difference between being accused or being cheating and confused.
That's right. All right, Steve. Well, appreciate you coming on. Steve Ray, right there. Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. And good to hear that Matt is always invited to future contests, even if he is dabbling in potentially, reportedly, allegedly unsavory behavior at said competition. All right, let's go ahead and do one more read and one more piece of business, and we'll call it a night. Green Mountain Grills, the aforementioned, which may or may not be getting a price increase. Sounds like it will be. For 17 years, Green Mountain Grill has brought the smoke to the competition scene and the backyards all over the world. Their Venturi-style firebox delivers the cleanest 150-degree smoke in the pellet game. Their new redesigned 2025 Prime 2.0 grills blend the proven technology of the past with the technology of the future. Green Mountain Grill, the original innovator in all things Wi-Fi, and continues to give the user granular options to control your grill in any environment and from anywhere. Green Mountain Grill is also leading the pack in accessory creation, from their pizza attachment that delivers pizzas in 2 minutes to rotisseries to add on side burners. Check out the new 2.0 Green Mountain Grill at greenmountaingrills.com. That's greenmountaingrills.com. We are back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Steve Ray for joining us last segment, owlsnestbbq.com. Step into the world of McAuliffe cigars. This segment brought to you by Each Blend is a chapter and a grand tale of craftsmanship and passion. The portfolio is a symphony of flavors, each note carefully composed to create a unforgettable Nicaraguan smoking experience. Again, McAuliffe Purple going to be released at PCA in New Orleans here shortly, and I will be getting my hands on the Herencia Habano and the McAuliffe A. So if you're looking for samples for either the Herencia Habano or the McAuliffe A, let me know. Not sure exactly what Vitola is going to be showing up in the mail. I did request either Robusto or Toro, which are traditionally the most popular Vitolas in any line. So if you're interested, shoot me an email and I'll put you in the wait list. So whenever I get my hands on those, I will send them out to you. And we continue to thank McAuliffe for their support of the show. All right, all the way back in the first hour, it was David Gafford, an abridged David Gafford, a Wi-Fi challenged David Gafford from the Barbecue Lab, taking time out of his vacation through a barbecue journey. They were in Memphis, not Las Vegas, Memphis, and it didn't work out. They were at the Pyramid. Appreciate him trying, nevertheless. We'll recycle him here in the next couple weeks and kind of refresh some of the topics that we were able to hit on, and then grab the other stuff that we didn't talk about or weren't able to talk about, I should say it that way. But thebarbecuelab.com is the website. And then after David, we had Robert Moss, robertfmoss.com, talking about the latest Michelin Star guide as it is now landing in the South. We talked about the states that make up the South for this Michelin Star guide evaluation. Some I agree with, some no. And then closing out the show here this evening, our pal Steve Ray from Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply. Also, Steve Ray's Midnight Oil there in the great city of Ottawa, Tennessee. Big show planned for you next week. We will already be in the third week of April, if you can believe it. So Wes Wright will be there, a quarterly guest of perhaps a Jess Pryles will be there, now that I'm thinking about it. Could be a Susie Bullock, but it could be a Jess Pryles. If it's Jess Pryles, remember she asked to be the host of Betwixt the Two at the close of the segment. We'll figure it all out. Plenty of guests, plenty of content, plenty of fun and frivolity. We'll see you back here. So, how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. And until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, it's your program host and proud U.S. American Greg Rempe saying, Shalom!
This is Dion Blumenrader with Big Hoss One Sauce, and you're listening to the best show on all things barbecue with my man, Greg Rempe.